Welcome, everyone. Let me try and share my screen, first of all. Let me know if you can all see that.
Yep.
Is that good?
Looks great.
Excellent. So yeah, thank you so much for this kind introduction. And I must say, I'm really honored and delighted to be sharing this first Ghatika session with you, facilitating the session and sharing some of these ancient practices today, empathetic joy, with you, and really exploring together how we can apply this practice into our daily lives, which I think is what it's all about in the end. And this is what I'm focusing on in my work in the workplace as well, really bringing the ancient practices, keeping their integrity as they were designed to be practiced, but bringing them into the modern world, into our contemporary situations, and applying them, integrating them, and reaping the benefits. So with that said, I thought I'll start off by just giving us a little flavor of the practice by attending to this picture that I put together, just drawing on some of some photos I could find that I think speak to the empathetic joy in a meaningful way. So I thought we can just attend for a few seconds, maybe a minute or so, and just attend to these images, not just as images on the screen, but really bringing these people that we can see here to life by drawing on our imagination and our ability to empathize, to, remembering our own experiences, drawing on our experiences in our relationships, and really seeing if we can relate to these moments of joy that are depicted here, not just from a sort of cognitive level, but really practicing this emotionally empathic response, but just allowing ourselves to resonate with what is shown here. So the feelings of joy, the feelings of happiness, well-being, the laughter and the smiles, and just inviting you to attend to these images, to these people, even though we don't know them. We can, just by also being fellow humans, we can maybe get a taste of how they're feeling in this moment, and what these moments that are shown here actually mean to them. And just see if that allows you to resonate with what is shown here, with that joy, the pleasure, the well-being that we can witness. And I don't know about you, but feel free to put something in the chat that came up for you just by these few seconds of attending in this way. But I find it quite easy when I see pictures like that to tap into that joy and to resonate with it. And that's what empathetic joy is really all about. So we are already quite good at it. We can do this. We do this in our daily lives. We do that with our children, our families, our friends and colleagues and everyone we care about. And can we then extend it, as we've just done here in this little practice, to people we don't know as well? And so that's a kind of little flavor of what empathetic joy is all about. So it's about attending in a particular way to others, to their joys, to their well-being, their happiness, and resonating with it. That's the meaning of empathy. So what I thought we'll do today, let me just advance my slides. So what I've got planned for you today, and I hope it's a meaningful first session, to start with what it actually is. What is empathetic joy? Share some definitions on that, then move on to why we should practice that. And that's a question that I'm always prepared for, dealing with people in the workplace, bankers, lawyers, and people who are not naturally prone to practicing something that might seem a little bit touchy-feely. but there's always a good reason why I think we might engage in these practices. So why do we want to do that? What's the benefit? And then we'll look at how to practice it. I'll introduce you to two different ways, two different traditions of practicing empathetic joy. And then we'll do the guided meditation, which will be a recording of Lama Alan Wallace. And after that, we'll do some sharing and exploring. And it's really inviting you to share and share your experience of other practices from other traditions that you might have done that are similar, and just see what comes up. And we'll end with this some suggestions on how we might want to apply and integrate the practice into our daily lives. So I hope that sounds like a good plan for now. And yeah, so let's share. The definition is really so simple. What is empathetic joy? It's the act of rejoicing in the well-being of others. And so here you see one of our contemplatives exuding joy, Jody, and just looking at you here, I just feel joyous just looking at you. And so that's, I think it's wonderful. So it's really a simple practice. And unlike some of the more challenging practices where we might feel, oh, I'm not so good at this, I'm not doing very well. And, you know, I'm a terrible perfectionist. I like to do things well. So I really rejoice in this practice because it's just an easy practice. It's just giving myself permission to feel the joy, which can come naturally. So what's not to like about this practice? And just to show you that it's actually not just an ancient practice, but it's something that even has an English word, even though it's not much used, and it comes from Latin, confelicity, which I came across on Twitter, and it's a tweet by Susie Dent, who's an English lexicographer and etymologist, and she brings attention to some words that are not so well known and that have a really nice meaning emotionally, really meaningful words. So she says it's a much underused word meaning delight in someone else's happiness, and it's the opposite of Schadenfreude, which of course is the delight in someone else's misfortune. And got 20,000 likes and 8,000 retweets. So it's there on Twitter, and she tweets about it regularly. So I just thought I'll share that with you because I was delighted to hear that word and to see that tweet. So why should we practice it? Well, I would suggest that first of all, there's a psychological reason to practice it because it basically enhances our well-being. So the practice can be seen as an antidote to some of the tendencies in the mind that don't feel so good for us and that don't make us feel very, very happy. First of all, cynicism. Cynicism is really the distrust of other people's motives. So we tend to look at other people and we might think, well, whatever good they're doing it just for the attention, for the publicity, to get praise or fame or power or prestige. And they're not really doing it for altruistic reasons. And so practicing empathetic joy actually looks at other people's motives in a more benevolent way. So that's the first reason. Another tendency that will be counteracted through empathetic joy is the tendency to feel jealous and envious of others. And, that might happen when we hear about, especially on social media, which I think is gives rise to a lot of jealousy and envy when we see that other people seem to be constantly in the Maldives and having a lovely holiday or eating a gourmet dinner. So instead of feeling jealous and envious, can we practice empathetic joy instead? And it feels much better. Then it's also a good antidote to despair. The more we get attuned to the suffering in the world and, the ubiquitous suffering in the world, we can get really depressed, downtrodden, and despairing. So it's a great antidote for that. And then it's a great way of redressing what's been called the negativity bias in the brain, which I think is actually the negativity bias in our mind. But neuroscientists have found that we have 5 times as many networks in the brain dedicated to processing negative information and threats. And so we need to be practicing empathetic joy 5 times as much to counteract that bias in the brain. And then when we apply this practice to ourselves, which we will do today, it actually counteracts two opposing tendencies that we might have. And I've certainly noticed them in myself. And I think maybe some of you can relate as well. On the one hand, low self-esteem, thinking that we're not really doing so great. We're not really making such a brilliant contribution. We're not really that special, etc., etc. Or on the other hand, pride, feeling, oh, look at me, I've done this, I'm so good. And so when we practice empathetic joy, because it's a contextualized feeling, it takes into account all the people that helped us, all the people that have contributed to our own happiness, it counteracts pride as well. So basically, summing it up, it's really good for our subjective hedonic well-being. And then to go deeper though, it's also, there's spiritual reasons. If that's how I would think about it, in terms of looking at the practice as a way of amplifying virtue. And because there is a focus also not just on joy, but on the virtue and experiencing joy in the virtue of, resonating with the virtue of others. And so it's a way, and I will explain how it's amplifying virtue. And it's therefore a way of cultivating ethics, because ethics, of course, is the ethics of restraint, not doing any harm, but then it's the ethics of creating virtue and practicing virtue. And so this practice is actually a really nice way and quite easy as a way to practice ethics, which of course is also a foundation of a sustainable sense of well-being. So this is how it works. Well, first of all, there is virtue. There is virtue in the world. That's the good news. Some of it we've created and we can rejoice in that, but most of it created by other people. And then when we attend to the virtue in meditation, for example, or just by keeping our attention and our eyes open, by attending to the virtue, we are also practicing virtue, because the practice of empathetic joy is in itself a virtue. And then triply beneficial, because it's not just the practice itself, but the intention to practice. So just arousing that aspiration to cultivate empathetic joy is in itself virtuous as well, because of course our intentions color the quality of what we do in the world. So the intention, the practice, and then the actual virtue that's already there, it's kind of a win-win-win situation, I would say. So, and a way of cultivating ethics and sustainable well-being. So just to share some of the scientific research, there isn't that much yet. It's a new field. There are 4 findings I'd like to share with you that researchers have found on joy. The first one is that people experience joy when they feel connected or reconnected to someone or something important. So there's a sense that it's not just being joyful, but it's really about something meaningful. And I think this aligns with the ancient practice as well. Secondly, joy predicts our increased happiness, that subjective well-being I was talking about, over time. Thirdly, and I love this point particularly, that gratitude and joy support each other in a cycle of goodness that enhances well-being. So the more we practice gratitude, the more likely we are to experience joy. And the more we practice joy, the more likely we are to feel a sense of gratitude. So it's this, again, a win-win, an upward spiral of goodness. So that's lovely, I think. And then the fourth one is that joy seems essential for the good life, and people would be wise, according to these researchers, not to miss the opportunity to pursue this emotion. So this is based on these researchers' work. So how do we practice? So there are different traditions, and I'd love to hear from you if you practice in a different tradition as well. So in the Theravada tradition, it's traditionally threefold. So first of all, we start on focusing on a joyful person. And the image that always comes to mind is, you might have seen it, the images of the Dalai Lama with Desmond Tutu smiling and laughing with each other. I mean, just looking at that image makes me joyful. It just resonates. So it's so easy to feel joy when you're looking at someone who's naturally joyful. But then we can refine the practice, and it's a little bit more advanced, let's say, where by attending to a neutral person, someone who doesn't necessarily experience or display so much joy as a joyful person. And then we can go as far as hostile person, who doesn't give us much opportunity for that, but even they will practice virtue at some point. They will experience joy at some point, even if they're generally, they appear a little bit miserable, but they might have petted their dog, or they will have rejoiced in their children's successes or something like that. So we can go from the easy to the more advanced or the more subtle practices here. And then in the Tibetan tradition, we also include ourselves in this practice. We can attend to our own, and the emphasis in the Tibetan tradition is more on the virtue. So attending to our own virtue of the past, present, and future, and not just attending to the acts of virtue and their beneficial consequences, but also attending to any aspirations that are virtuous, the aspiration to cultivate our minds, for example. So that can also be included. And then we extend that outwards to others, again, focusing on past, present, and future virtue. And as you will see in the practice we're actually going to do in a moment, we can adjust the practice. It's a bit of a mix of these traditions, and so we can be playful and we can adjust it to what works for us, I think is the message for me here. And so how do we know that we're doing the practice correctly, and what should we see as a sign of progress, and what could go wrong in the practice? Well, first of all, what gives rise to empathetic joy is to actually attend to other people's virtue and joy. So it's a matter of attending to, attention, noticing it. And the more we attend to, as we just did in the beginning of this session, the more empathetic joy is naturally going to arise. And the more that arises, we should see that these tendencies towards envy and cynicism should subside over time. So that's a sign. When you see that subsiding in yourself, it's a sign that, yeah, you're doing the practice and it's reaping the rewards. It's really, yielding the rewards. But it can go wrong when the noticing of other people's virtues or pleasure can lead to hedonic fixation, which is basically a sort of attachment to just pleasures, and they can be less than wholesome. They can be even detrimental sometimes. So that will be when the practice goes wrong. So that's a way to distinguish. Are we doing the practice correctly? Is it really empathetic joy, or are we just having a lot of fun in a frivolous, not very meaningful way and not very wholesome way? So, and with that, I hand over to Courtney to share the guided meditation.
Yes, so I will take over the screen share.
I'll stop sharing.
One moment. Okay. Can you see my screen or no? Probably not. One second. Okay. Can you all see the screen? Okay. And I will start playing the meditations if you want to get in your favorite meditation posture, and just let us know in the chat if you can't hear. Okay. One moment.
Settle the body in its natural state, the respiration and its natural rhythm. And let your awareness settle in the body, in the field of the body, observing whatever sensations arise therein without distraction, without grasping. and relaxing deeply with each out-breath any tension, any resistance, thoughts, memories. Let them go. Then shift the mindfulness away from the field of the body to the field of the mind. With your eyes at least slightly open, the gaze vacant. Observe the space of the mind whenever arises within it, without distraction, and to the best of your ability without grasping. Whatever comes up, just let it be. Observe it with unwavering mindfulness. Not only to thoughts and images, but any kind of emotions or feelings. If, for example, there's any resistance or displeasure with respect to the noise in the environment, simply observe that displeasure. Be aware of it. Without distraction, without grasping. Simply note whatever emotions arise in the space of the mind and let them be, but without identifying with them or reacting to them. And now let's turn to the cultivation of the third of the four immeasurables, which is empathetic joy. Bring to mind a personal acquaintance, or it could be someone you only know from afar, who frequently embodies a sense of good cheer. A person who is buoyant, filled with humor, resilient. Radiates a sense of well-being. Bring such a person vividly to mind. You may draw from your memory on occasions when this person has displayed such well-being, such happiness. And as you attend to this aspect of reality, attending closely, let this person's joy, this person's success, become real, and share this person's joy by taking delight, rejoicing in this person's well-being. As you breathe out this light from your heart, a light of gladness, of delight. Enfolding this person's happiness in your own. Bring to mind the influence of this person on other people. How they may often resonate with this person's own sense of goodwill and well-being. And take delight in this person's influence on others as well. And now bring to mind another person who is clearly bringing to life causes of happiness, who embodies kindness or generosity, wisdom, is clearly cultivating and manifesting virtues in daily life. Bring vividly to mind this person and his or her own virtues, acts of goodness in the world. Reflect upon the impact of this person on the world and other people. And rejoice in the goodness this person manifests and brings to the world. How wonderful it is that such people are present and make themselves known and offer their best to the world. As you breathe out this light of joy, of taking delight, celebrating the other's virtues and the impact of those virtues on the world. And now invert your awareness. Draw your awareness in upon your own life. And drawing from memory, recall those occasions when you experienced great joy and satisfaction. Some great success was achieved, or you were the recipient of some great good fortune that brought you true delight. Take empathetic joy in the happiness of the person that you were. And with each out-breath, arouse this empathetic joy. Imagine light from your heart flowing forth, embracing in the spirit of rejoicing this person and this person's joys. And then think back upon your own virtues. Occasions when your mind was wonderfully wholesome. Occasions when you brought your own goodness to the world, your own acts of kindness, of wisdom, your own expressions of altruism. Look back on those events and take delight in the virtue, the goodness that you brought to the world. Then release all objects and appearances to the mind. Let go of all objects and subjects and simply let rest your awareness in its own ongoing flow of knowing, ongoing flow of clarity.
Can you all see my screen now? So now is the time to share, and I've written up some questions just to act as prompts, not to be prescriptive in any way, but just to start us off to have this conversation and share what our experience was in this practice particularly, or more generally, what your experience is with doing this kind of practice if you're already doing it. So you can raise your hand. There is a function in the reactions where you can just raise your hand and we can see you, and you can then speak, or you can also use the chat if you prefer to write it down. So how was it for you? What did you find? Was it easy? Was it challenging? And again, it's whatever came up for you is just the way it was. So there's no good or bad, and sometimes it takes a little bit of practice for the joy naturally to arise. So how did you find this practice? Anyone like to share? You can just unmute yourselves and speak, or you can raise your hand. Natalia.
Well, first of all, thank you for a reminder to practice empathetic joy. I don't think I do enough, and it was easy and it felt really good. So on that note, I would like to ask you, how do you think we should balance our usual practice with empathetic joy? Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you for sharing that, and for your question, which is really meaningful. So for me, I mean, it's wonderful to do it, and I was going to get to that in the next slide as well, where I share, that we can do this as a formal practice, as we did just now, but there's also the option of just bringing it into our day and practice as we go about our day. And for me, that's kind of where the juice is. That's where, we have so much to work with. If we open our eyes metaphorically and we attend to people, then that's a really good way of practicing it. And it doesn't take any extra time. We don't need to be doing it just on the cushion, although that's, of course, a good practice ground, but we take it into our day. And for me, that's in a way the easiest way for me to practice it is to do it in that way. And I agree that I don't do it enough either. So I think it's a great reminder to do that. Yeah, thank you for that. And Chantal, do unmute yourself and speak.
There we go. Can you hear me now, Clara?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. This particular meditation for me actually helped me tap into gratitude, because I did bring up the two people. So one of my colleagues at work, Debbie, she's the one that's like super kind, but also humorous. And then the other one is my mother, right? The one that is just so loving, and just to be able to kind of reflect on them, I was like, oh my God, and just grateful that I do have these people in my life, because I know not all people, right, have maybe people like that in their lives. So when I find myself, I think now maybe not feeling as grateful, maybe I'll just do this meditation to sort of like generate those feelings of goodness, because I always feel good around those people. And it's just amazing how, if we find ourselves, anybody here on this call who is in an environment that is hostile, that they don't have these typical people around them, how important this meditation can be to get them in that zone, to help them feel what kindness is, because it can really bring us down. I know Alan Wallace talks about the importance of sort of like surrounding ourselves with people that can generate those feelings, because the degenerate times sort of bring us into that lower kind of energy, I guess. So this, particularly for me, just helped bring that back of how important this is. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's so meaningful. And I so agree. I mean, it's we tend to forget about it, and it's wonderful that you could tap into the gratitude. And it's exactly what these modern researchers have found, the scientists, that gratitude and joy really go hand in hand. And it's wonderful, it's a wonderful practice, and to connect us with that. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Annette.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Yes, I agree with Chantal, and I was just thinking that, in case there isn't anybody like that around, for instance, if you lose the people in your life who did bring you the most joy, like, for instance, I did, and it's been years ago already now, my parents and also my husband. But so in the morning then, and this is thinking of what Natalia said, how it really brings it to life to me, this practice of gratitude and empathetic joy is like every morning, no matter what the situation is, I have a practice just simple of going over to my little shrine table to them. It's in the form of a watch, a bracelet, and a mala bead, and just, put a big smile, because when I think of them, a big, huge smile, and I think that physical smiling in your face has an effect as well, and just thank them and remember all the joy. It only is a few seconds, good morning, oh, hi, and thank you so much, and and then go off and about your day and try and do as good as you can to bring them joy, like they brought you so much joy, even though they're gone already. So it helps with grief. It helped me with grief also. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's very moving, and just hearing you speak, I do feel that it's just so this empathetic joy is so infectious, isn't it? Just, I think, I don't know if the others are also experiencing that as we're listening to each other. That also creates empathetic joy, just listening to other people's experience with empathetic joy. So it multiplies, and it's a wonderful practice that you have there, doing this every morning. And as I mentioned in one of the slides, it's also about attending to the past, present, and future. So it's all included, and that's also wonderful, because we don't always have to have the people in front of us. It can be done as you're doing it. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else who'd like to share? And I'm aware of.
I see a comment in the chat about,
Oh, yes.
I wonder if you would comment on this. Someone had a difficult time thinking of moments of joy and when they brought good things to the world. Do you have any advice about how to manage that kind of a challenge in meditation?
Let me just quickly read it on my other screen. I can think that's much.
And there's also a question about kind of sleepiness.
And I do myself. Yeah, it's really attending, sometimes we do have this low self-esteem, or the challenge around really seeing our own contribution, but it could be a really small thing that we do. And it's really just attending and bringing to mind situations, bringing to mind even our aspiration to practice these things, to want to cultivate our mind in that way. Even that is already a virtue, and we can take delight. The motivations of all of us to be here together and practice together, that's also something to rejoice in. So I think we can just, we can find a lot of things to rejoice in. They don't have to be big acts or something really, huge, but just like that, so if that helps. So what was the other?
It was a question about kind of sleepiness that's hard to overcome. I'm just scrolling here. Yeah, it's sort of being too absent. Why does it happen? And why does it suddenly happen? And that kind of thing. If you have any comments on on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's also part of the general, attentional imbalances that we're all prone to. And sometimes we're very sleepy, we're sleep deprived. It's happens to me a bit as well, because I never feel I have enough sleep. So that's one thing. And, it's just, it's a matter of training our attention gently, kindly, self-compassionately. I think that's important, and not beating ourselves up. And it's not always the right time to practice. And this particular meditation, as I was saying to Natalia before, it's something that we can do, not necessarily just on the cushion, but we can do it during the day as well. So if it doesn't work on the cushion for one reason or another, we can do it outside of that. But generally, in terms of attention, yes, we just train our attention slowly, gradually, and it will get better as we go along. Hope that helps a little bit. I am aware of time, so I'm happy to stay on. I know that people have to go, but I wanted to share with you that 2 more slides, and one is really about some ideas for so how we can apply and integrate the practice. So there's the formal practice, as I was saying, which can be a guided one, as we just did, or an unguided one, and we can really be playful about that and do our own the way we want to practice it. But then the informal practice is about bringing it into our own lives. And it's really about attending and letting the joy arise as a felt sense. So it's like from the bottom up, not telling ourselves, oh, I should be happy, I should be, but really letting it arise, resonating with. We can keep a journal if some people like to do that, keep a journal to help us notice and get better at noticing and refining our attention of joy, of virtue. We can also include an evening practice of reviewing our day and arouse gratitude, as even in the little moments of joy and virtue that we have created and that we have witnessed. We can try and challenge ourselves, and if that's our kind of thing, can I find 3 things, 5 things, 10 things or more moments of empathetic joy to rejoice in. And we also have a Facebook group, I believe, Courtney, right? We have that Facebook group now for the CCR where we can share our experiences. And I think you'll find that the more we share our empathetic joy, that we can actually also rejoice in each other's joy, because it is infectious. And here's some ideas where, for situations, I'm not going to you can look at them just as some, I think social media is a big one where we can do a lot of that. And it might be a really wholesome motivation to bring to our time that we spend on social media. I really try to take that to heart. But there's so many other situations during the day where we can practice empathetic joy. And as we come to the end, I just want to share with you a quote that I find really meaningful, which is that there's no act of virtue so small that it's not worth taking delight in. So I hope that encourages us all to notice even the smallest bits of virtue that we and others are generating in the world. And with that, I want to thank you all for attending and for sharing the practice, sharing your experiences, and thank you for being here. And I hand back to Courtney if you want to say any closing words.
Yeah, no, just thank you so much, Clara, for such a wonderful session. We will share a link to the Facebook group. We just sort of created it. And so look for that. And also some follow-ups. Would love feedback from you about how this session went. And we'll announce the next session very soon. It will be around a month from now in August. I think we're still nailing down the dates and times. And we are grateful for all of your contributions to the CCR. It's a time when we're investing heavily, and we just thank you for your support. If you feel moved to donate, there are links on our website, and we'll send out reminders about that as well. But it's just wonderful to practice together. That's what matters most, and really the best offering you can make is your own practice. And so thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.